Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about using technology effectively in law school, whether that's hardware or software. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan, that's me, and Lee Burgess. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so that you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be, together with the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. I also run the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we would love to hear from you. With that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about using technology effectively in law school, whether that's hardware or software. So, one of the reasons we decided to do this episode was we just invested in new iPad Pros and we're super geeky and excited about them.
They're really cool.
They're so cool. Allison actually typed the notes for this podcast on it. I'm currently reading the notes on the podcast on it. And when we were thinking about why we wanted these and getting really excited in the Apple Store after a business lunch the other day, we realized that a lot of the features we were interested in would be really useful for law students. And we've got to confess that we were actually on a working conference call with someone who was using a lot of this technology. And we were supposed to be totally paying attention to the content, which we were. But then we also had to take a moment and we're like, you have to tell us how you're doing that.
And we're like, how did you just make that move on the screen? That was really cool.
It was really cool. Like, how are you making this so much more exciting on this Zoom conference call? So, we really got excited watching somebody else use some of this technology, but now we're finding that it can be applicable in lots of different ways and we're incorporating it into what we do at work, but we think that it could also help you a lot in school. So
yeah, I think a lot of the features that made us think we wanted to have iPad Pros would actually be really useful for law students too. So, yep. Number one, you absolutely do not need to upgrade all of your technology devices for law school.
Please don't.
In fact, we actually suggest that if you have a perfectly functional laptop, that you don't immediately upgrade it for the next year or two. So why is that?
Well, because the bar exam is likely to be taken on that laptop. And what you don't want is a janky laptop that's going to be crashing or has, battery life that just depletes in moments and things like that. You want to have a solid working laptop for the bar exam. And I think it's also important to remember you can use that money for other things, maybe such as a tablet, and it might even be a cheaper option. But what you're really doing in law school is word processing.
Right.
You don't need a super high functioning top of the line computer to run Microsoft Word.
No, I used my prior MacBook Pro from, I think, 2009 until 2018.
It was amazing to watch you give up that computer.
I loved that computer.
I know.
Well, because it was a 17-inch and they didn't make it later. Apparently it's the least popular model ever sold, but the people who loved it really, really loved it.
You really loved it.
I did love it. And every time I went to the Apple Store, they made fun of me because they were like, you should just get a new computer. I'm like, I don't want a new computer. I just want you to fix the problem with this computer. And they're like, God, these people with a 17-inch monitor, you just will not give them away. Eventually, I downsized to the 16 or 15-inch. Or the point being, that computer worked fine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was no reason for me to replace it until it really started to have issues. And I think it was battery issues and it was overheating. It was getting to a point.
It was getting tired. It was like, please put me out to pasture.
It was at the end of its useful life. But, there was no reason for me to have upgraded it 4 years earlier just to have a cooler model because it worked fine.
Right.
So, same thing with your phone, My phone at this point, I think, is 3 or 4 years old. It works fine.
Yeah.
I don't really care. So if you keep that until you really have to upgrade it or it gets stolen or whatever, then you can spend that money on more fun stuff like a new tablet.
Right. And so before you go buy your new devices, you want to think about what you're going to get out of them and then purchase things accordingly. But you should also double check to see if your school or any stores that you're buying them from have any student discounts. Some companies do. I think Apple does.
I think they do, and they're often pretty good.
Yeah.
I definitely remember buying my laptop through the school because we got a pretty sweet discount.
Yeah. So don't go out the summer before law school and invest in a whole lot of technology, one that you may not even use, but two that you might even be able to do cheaper once you have a school ID.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the point is, be thoughtful about this. Don't just rush out and buy stuff because you're starting school. But if you do think you want to buy stuff, there's some kind of cool stuff you can buy these days.
Yeah. So let's talk about how excited we are about our iPad Pros. And no, I wish we could have gotten like a discount from Apple.
I know,
but there would have been.
This
I
is
have
not
a friend
sponsored.
who works. No, I have a friend who does marketing in Apple, and I'm pretty sure if I went to him, I was like, "Listen to our podcast," he'd be like, "Cool, dude.
Yeah,
Not
great.
going to give you any."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we paid full price.
We did.
But no, I mean, I think there are a couple of exciting things about this. One, I think it's one of the first tablets I've seen, and I'm not like a tablet expert. There may well be other ones out there that can do a lot of the same things. You should definitely check. They're probably cheaper. We're paying an Apple Premium. But it is a legitimate laptop replacement in a lot of ways. I probably wouldn't want to type a huge paper on it with like big citations and things like that. But it is totally fine when you have the attached keyboard for note taking, shorter writing, any of these, anything you need to do, I'd say up to like 10 pages or something, you'd probably be fine on it.
Yeah, and I downloaded Microsoft Word onto the tablet, and I opened documents on it, and you can still do things on it. I haven't fully explored footnoting and things like that. But it does, now run a lot of these programs, which you didn't used to be able to run on an iPad. And so that is really changing the game.
Yeah, and I think, maybe you can really do all of your citations and things too. I don't know.
Somebody should do that research and then tell us about it.
I just feel like it was already so difficult to do those on a laptop. I'm probably not going to want to try to do it with like my finger on an iPad.
Right. Yep.
But, maybe you can. So if you have your old laptop, you can do the final edits to your thing. But it's completely fine for typing on.
Yeah. And it's way more portable. And I think that, the one thing about law school is you schlep a lot of stuff around.
God, the amount, just like the volume.
Yeah. And so you can work in more places, which is great. And, now through a lot of your casebook publishers, like Casebook Connect, you can get electronic casebooks. So really, with one tablet, you could have all of your law school stuff on it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you find yourself in a cafe with an hour or two to kill and you have your tablet with you, you could be literally doing your reading, you could be making some outlines, taking notes, all these different things that you're probably not just going to be carrying your laptop everywhere with you.
Yeah. But where we really, really got excited about the iPad Pro was the new Apple Pencil. They call it a pencil, right?
Yeah, it's a pencil.
The pencil.
It's amazing.
Which is a new version than the version that could be used with the older versions of the iPad. This feels more like a pencil. And we started drawing and taking notes and seeing the power of being able to use basically your tablet as a pad of paper. And it kind of blew our minds.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, it really is.
It feels like a normal pen or pencil, but you can handwrite in really bad handwriting. I tested it.
That's true.
People could barely read.
Even the guy at the Apple store was like, "Wow, that was
pretty impressive." I was just like, "Oh, I wonder if we can convert this into like written text." And sure enough, I could scribble on the pad and literally push a button or highlight it or do whatever. And it accurately interpreted my horrible scrawled handwriting. There was no testing. There was no I have to train it. It just worked.
Yeah, and this was using Notability, which is a note-taking app that you can download from the App Store. And so we were starting to brainstorm. Really, the sales guy was like, "I'll leave you guys to what you're doing.
Like you're clearly going to buy these."
Yeah, clearly.
let me know what you figure out.
Yeah, exactly. But we were thinking of all of the possibilities you could use for technology like this. So, for instance, if you typed up briefs while you were doing your reading, you could then load those briefs into this app like Notability and take handwritten notes on the briefs during class. So it allows you to kind of live in this hybrid world between handwriting and typing, which is, I think, kind of the magic spot. You want some of the benefits of handwriting, the muscle memory, the self-editing, the having to process information, but you don't have to deal with paper, which is, I think, what prevents a lot of people from wanting to do handwriting.
Yeah, and there's some legitimate problems with, we strongly encourage people to handwrite their notes in class, but there are some legitimate problems with bringing paper. A, it's heavy. B, it can be lost. C, you have to do something with it later. Whereas if you are writing on the tablet, it can just be automatically converted to text. So then you can take that in and start making, your outline, your attack plan, whatever. Critically important, it can just be automatically stored in the cloud.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So you never have to worry about it getting lost. And yeah, I mean, you think about like bringing in your notes, so bringing in your briefs and then writing over them so you have everything. The other thing I find really remarkable is the editing, So like I remember, doing law review editing, we had these giant sheets of paper and you had to do all these squiggly things on them. And I think the day you got this, you sent me something you edited and it looked just like that.
Pen. I know. It made me so happy. I don't know if it made my team happy, but it made me really happy.
I mean, no one's complained to me when I've sent them edits like that, which I do all the time now.
Well, because I think it's faster to edit. I really hate track changes. Like we use it with our students all the time because it is one of the better ways to show people how to change their work. But when you're doing document creation or you're trying to even give feedback to another person, oftentimes being able to circle and underline and make notes in the margins, it's just so much cleaner to read it in this way than it is to do type track changes. And I could see a lot of benefits between sending documents back and forth between study group friends and things like that. You can do that using, this marking up of PDFs and documents, and that's just going to make things seem so much cleaner.
Yeah, and you can edit your own work. I mean, imagine sitting in a cafe and I'm editing a paper or whatever, and then,
I used to have to print everything.
Yeah, you'd have to print it.
I think the other thing that is great is that, you can do practice. One of the things that I think a lot of times students don't do is they won't print out practice questions to do practice. And so they try and have the question on their computer screen and they're flipping back and forth as they're trying to write. And I think that one of the things you could do is if you were doing practice assignments, you could have your laptop, you could have your tablet with the question, and then with the pen, you could go and you could circle and mark it up and do your handwritten outline just as you would on scratch paper. And it mimics that without having to have you get access to a printer and do all of that work. But you're not losing those steps that I think are very important.
Yeah, and you can even split screen actually.
Oh, I haven't played with split screen.
So you could have your pre-writing outline up on one side, and then you could be actually typing on the other. I mean, it'd be a little tight in terms of space,
unless
but
you had the bigger iPad.
It's pretty cool.
The smaller ones.
Yeah.
We also got these great cases, and then you just throw them in your bag. It's just great.
So, I mean, basically, I think this could be an incredibly useful option for students, especially for the note-taking and the editing. It just eliminates so many barriers to entry for handwriting, which has so many useful applications and which we really recommend. A lot of the research really recommends. And, if it's something you're interested in exploring, I think this could be, a reasonable option to actually do that in a way that works pretty well.
Yeah. And you never know. I mean, we saw this technology play out with us when we were the clients of someone on this meeting, and it wasn't like a lawyer that was working with us, which is probably why they were using this new swanky technology, because it wasn't a lawyer. But we saw it be a really effective way to teach us material that they were trying to convey to us. And I think that using this type of technology that could be used with your future clients, you can brainstorm different ways to streamline here, and it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard of some virtual nomad lawyer types who are, gotten rid of the laptop. They've just gone to something like this as a desktop replacement, and it looks really slick. So, if you're in a client meeting and you're like taking notes or giving them the 1, 2, 3, and then you move stuff around the screen, they're gonna be like, "Whoa!" And then you can send them those notes afterwards, and it's just all pretty seamless and amazing.
Yep, and it's all in the cloud. So if they're like, "I can't find those notes," you're like, "No worries, I'll send them to you again."
Yeah, here we go. Here's the link. It's in Dropbox.
Yeah. So, do you have to get one of these iPads? Probably not. But it might be a better investment than just a new laptop, because it does offer a lot of this functionality in a smaller package that's going to be a lot more flexible than, a laptop. Like we got these like a week ago, and I mean maybe not even a week. I don't know. I've been using it a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean just to test it out. No, I mean I will say there are certain things that's a little clunky to start with until you kind of figure out how to put bullet points in or something. But I mean there's a learning curve on everything.
Yep.
And like I said, other tablets probably are also awesome.
And I've heard the Surface is good. I haven't used a pen on the Surface. To me, I think
the pen is the game changer.
The pen is the game changer for me, and I have tried this idea of eliminating paper in other ways, and I've always found the handwriting is just yuck. It made mistakes. It wasn't you had to hold up your your part of your hand so it didn't touch the tablet.
Oh yeah, I was like the other day, I was like leaning my hand on it and taking notes, and it worked fine.
Worked
it was great. It's pretty impressive.
Yep.
One note, you probably want to make sure that if you're buying expensive electronics of any type, you want to have some type of insurance. So if you are renting, I would recommend renter's insurance. Make sure it covers theft or loss of electronic items. I mean, sometimes they limit it to a certain value. I mean, this is the same for your phone, for your for your laptop. But you want to make sure that you're not going to be, in a really serious problem if something happens to these very expensive gadgets.
Yeah. So now let's take a moment and switch gears and talk about some of the software that we think might be useful as you're kind of setting up your electronic plan for running your law school life. I mean, the first thing, the easiest thing, the most direct thing is you just have to use an electronic calendar. I fought it for years.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally you get people still who fight it. And I'm like, okay, we'll go to an office supply store and see what kind of, stuff in this genre they can offer you. But really, I mean, I just feel like there are so many benefits to having an electronic calendar that it's really inadvisable not to.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep track of anything? You have to carry this huge, planner around with you?
Yeah. No, it's so much better to just do it online. Then when you get invited to a birthday party, it just pops up automatically. It's just magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do it online.
Yeah, and also I think, you can use this to structure your time. So it forces you, it doesn't force you, but it encourages you to, block out things, for example, for deep work. When are you going to do that? You can just have a set schedule that you can kind of adjust as you go, but you can sit down and have a recurring item that appears every Saturday afternoon for 4 hours of deep work. And then at least it's on your calendar. And if you decide not to do it, then you're making an active decision not to do that work.
So true.
Versus just thinking, I'll do it when I get time. Right. And that time is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Another tool that we've talked about a lot on the podcast is Trello, which we use for a lot of different organizational things, but you could use it for project organization, life organization, to-do list organization, and Zapier is something that you can use to even make it more powerful to connect it to other apps. I don't know. You know more about Zapier because you actually set it up for us.
Right. Exactly. So Lee and I both have Trello boards, and there's an article we can link to that gave us this idea by, I think, the founder of Trello about how he uses it. And this is kind of next level stuff. But you can set up Zapier, which is just an app that connects different pieces of software. And I think they even have a free version, and we pay them quantity of money at this point because we're running so many, but I think they do have a free version. So, we can do things like if I'm in Slack and somebody asks me to do something, all I have to do is star that message and then it automatically goes into my Trello inbox.
Yeah.
Or, I can send an email if I think of something randomly, like I'm talking to my friend and they ask me to do something, I just send myself an email and it automatically goes into that Trello inbox. So basically that board is then collecting all of our stuff.
Yeah.
But you can also use Trello if anything that requires kind of a system or different discrete pieces that you need to keep track of.
Processes, collaboration.
So I think, here for law students, it's really powerful for things like research projects. Where you're not quite sure, you're going out and you're finding different documents, you're not quite sure how they fit together, you want to keep track of what you've done. So you can have different lists that are things I need to read, things I have read. You can make a note on why it does or doesn't apply. You could have a list for different issues. You're moving these cards around so that when you're ready to sit down and write, you have a very clear idea of what you've looked at, what you need for each issue, what you're going to talk about, and critically, the pieces that you looked at that you're not going to use.
Yeah. So another tool that we use on our team, and have we really decided, is it asana? Is it asana?
I don't know.
If somebody listening knows, will you just
in
send us
yoga, it's an asana.
I know.
But I think they pronounce it asana.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. I'm guessing.
This was a tool we used many moons ago that we have reintroduced into our lives.
We've recently returned to.
Because I think
it's better for certain things.
I do.
And this is kind of the point. You want to think about what tool you're using to solve what problem.
Yeah. And I will admit, I've been cheating on Trello, and I've been playing with a to-do list on Asana. And one of the things that I like about it is it's really, I think that it does have a few different views, but I mostly use it in the list view. And it allows you to really do things in different priorities, make notes. And so on my to-do list, which is incredibly long right now, I was able to give things different priorities. And then I was able to add a little tag that you can see in the list. So one of my things is I oftentimes am waiting for somebody to get back to me, but I feel like I'm always torn because do I cross it off when I've like...
Oh, well, in Trello, I have a waiting list.
Yeah. Well, see, I did too on Trello, but I'm trying to like incorporate the tools that we're asking our people to use.
Yeah.
So I also have that in Trello. But then it was kind of like, okay, waiting for Allison, waiting for, whoever else. So that's made it nice. And then you can ask it to sort by priorities. So it basically will just tell me, these are the 5 things that you have to do today. So I think that it's... For some people who really like linear things, I think Asana is a really good
I think it's
option.
great. It doesn't quite work the way my brain works as well as Trello does, but I definitely see the benefit. And I think particularly if you're trying to keep something on track, I think for date-based things, like anything like that, I think it's way better.
Yeah. So you should check that out. And it's free. Both Trello and Asana are free. So you can just mess around with it.
Yeah. See what makes sense to you.
Okay, our good friend Dropbox, just do it and save it to the cloud.
At least put everything in a backup in the cloud and make it automatic, So the benefit of something like Dropbox on a laptop is you just have a folder and you save your documents there and they automatically go into Dropbox and you never have to think about it.
Yeah, it's magic.
As soon as you start having to think about where you're saving things or did you upload it, it's not going to happen. So I don't care if you use Dropbox or iCloud or Box or whatever, there are probably 10 other ones. Just use one of them and never think about it again until you have a problem and your laptop gets stolen. And then you're like, oh, thank God I had all of this stuff in the cloud.
Yep.
Done.
And that's the great thing about using, I think, a lot of these apps and tools. Going back to like the iPad, I was setting things up and I downloaded Notability. And it's like, do you want an automatic copy to be put in the cloud? And I'm like, yes, I do.
Please
do. It's like, check that box. I mean, I think then it's just like, whew, now, if something happens to my iPad, I can wipe it remotely and then, I haven't lost anything. And I think that's pretty magical.
Well, and sometimes people get like a bug up their bonnet about like, well, is it secure? Is somebody be hacking my files? Like, honestly, who cares? I mean, like really, like you're a law student. I mean, like, does anyone really care what's in your like Evernote?
It's like a point. My Evernote's pretty boring.
I mean, okay, it's a valid consideration. But the other point I think people who actually really do research this care about is like the reality is these companies are basically based on the fact that like they're pretty secure.
Like I'm sure Dropbox's security team is gigantic.
They're pretty aces, I think. So, they are doing everything they can to stop people from breaking into this. So I would go so far as I don't think we're going out on a limb to say this. It's probably a lot more secure than your law school's like IT department made stuff.
I think that's probably safe. Yeah. Yeah. So I think you just got to do it because the option of not doing it is just...
Well, and we just hear so many stories still to this day, which astonishes me, of people losing work. And it's always at the, like, you can't apply to law review or you're going to fail this class because you can't turn this thing in. And that is just not acceptable. Yeah. That should never happen.
No. I mean, we remember the days of saving things to floppy disks. Like that was a real fear. Like you had your whole world like on, like you had multiple floppy disks.
And I mean, I think you also should back up, on a external hard drive or whatever, but do not rely on that as being your primary source of your backups.
Okay, so then other apps I think that can help you with note taking, like OneNote. I think Evernote can be really interesting to use for law school. We talked about Notability, which runs off of the iPad, but a lot of these kind of note taking tools can help keep you more organized and make things easy to find. I think one of the things that we really liked about Notability and taking notes using the pen is this idea that you could draw out charts and make visuals, and then you can like take that visual, copy it, and drop it into an outline. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so cool.
You can make your own chart right on there. And
so stay tuned for that technology on the Law School Toolbox because it's coming.
You're going to be seeing that on the blog.
You're going to be like, how much more stuff are they going to draw using their like new technology? And it's good. The answer is it's going to be a lot.
It's definitely going to be a lot.
We're excited about it. We can't deny it.
Yeah. So again, with the note taking stuff, just think about what you need, and then there's probably a solution that does that. Yeah. So people are loyal to different solutions, and they all are slightly different, but there's definitely one that's probably going to work for you.
Yep. So we like using Slack. How many Slack organizations are you a part of? I'm a part of 4.
I think 3.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, they add up quickly.
Yeah, they do. And Slack, even among your study group, I mean, I personally am a fan of anything that can get people off of email, or at least get me off of email.
Yeah.
And I think the advantage of Slack, I mean, Slack can be distracting, if you have a huge group or whatever. But the great part about it is, say that, you need to catch up on a chain, you just read the whole thing. It's not like I'm looking for certain emails or whatever. It's searchable. So even within a study group, I think looking at ways to be more efficient, whether it's saving your documents in a shared drive or a Google Doc or whatever, and then using Slack to communicate, and then something like a Doodle if you need to schedule, it just eliminates a lot of that annoying back and forth and what are we doing? And you can have a Trello board or an Asana board or whatever that organizes everything. Just thinking about these ways to kind of streamline your life and keep everything organized and in one place that you can access in different ways, investing a little bit of time up front can pay off big time, whether it's for yourself or for a group of people that you need to work with.
Yeah. What about ways to keep up with legal blogs and things like that? What do you think is a good way to do that?
A very underappreciated tool here, which is very retro, kind of 90s, but actually is very effective, are things like RSS feed readers. So I think Feedly is one of them. But basically they, aggregate based on this thing called an RSS feed that a lot of blogs just have on there. We have them, you can just copy the link. And then instead of going out on the web and getting distracted and looking at all these things, everything just shows up for you. So, you can have the SCOTUS blog or whatever, and it's all just right there.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and lastly, the bane of everyone's existence is their email.
Oh, God.
I know.
And schools still send so much of it.
They send a lot of it. I mean, even schools that we've graduated from send us a lot of email.
I think I've unsubscribed from most of those lists. But
But so you might need to come up with ways to filter it, maybe do folders, maybe you have a couple different email addresses. Maybe you want to have one that your school is sending all this stuff to, one that you use for shopping. I mean, it gets very complicated.
Yeah, and sometimes people just give up and they say, well, I just don't read any email that the school sends. But that's not really a great solution either, because, people like career services are actually sending out useful things. They're probably just sending too much of it.
Yeah.
So, at a minimum, you probably want to filter that into a certain folder or give it a label so that you can at least look at it. And
on
see,
your iPad while you're in the coffee shop.
Right. And see, are they offering me a possible job?
Yeah.
Are they telling me about deadlines for things that I need to meet the deadline on if I'm going to apply for this funding? These are important things. Or even events that are happening. I think it becomes problematic if you just filter all that into spam and never look at it, because then, a lot of what you're paying for in law school is access to these type of events. So you've got to find a way to kind of make sense of it all without just letting it ping you all day. I mean, I personally think, I would turn off my email alerts probably.
I definitely have turned off all of my notifications.
Yeah, so I think,
which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, because part of this is you can't get too distracted by these devices. This is something I think most people struggle with. Cal Newport has a whole book on it, Digital Minimalism. I think I read the first chapter and put it in a pile of books that I haven't finished reading, but it does look interesting. Because, these things, imagine that you're trying to, you are in a coffee shop and you're trying to read your casebook, and then these notifications keep popping up from the New York Times telling you about, the possible war with Iran. And then you've got an email coming in about some event that you might want to go to. This is very distracting. So I think it's better to really think about, dropping into these things on your own time and your own schedule, so that you might have a few, checkpoints. So you check email or whatever it is. And then, if somebody really needs to reach you, there may be some way they can do that via a text or something.
Right. I think that's kind of the way I have thought about my notification world, is that I get Slack notifications, which our team uses to communicate with each other.
And even that, I think, has an auto,
we have a snooze.
I think it auto snoozes at some point.
I think after 8, I don't immediately get notifications.
Yeah, and I think it does that automatically, actually.
Yeah, which is great. And then you can set your time in the morning, too, for when they turn back on. But it's kind of if everyone on my team knows, if you want to talk to me fast, you text me or you send me a Slack message, because I turned off my email notifications because I couldn't take it.
Yeah. And all these things, if you let them, will send you an endless, Trello will send you tons of stuff.
Yeah.
They'll all send you tons and tons of notifications.
So you have to be thoughtful about it. But, it's not like I don't check my email. I just don't get pinged every time an email comes in.
Yeah, because it's just distracting when they slide down and you're like, oh, what's that about? Oh, wait, what was I reading?
Right.
You just want to, you want to have that mental space for actually focusing
Yeah.
Which ironically, I mean, you can just turn them all off and then the only thing you see is what you choose to see. And I think that's probably the best, I think that's the best default option versus because they all default to on,
right?
With sounds and banners and this and that. And you're like, okay, what is beeping at me?
Right. It's so true. It's so true. So you do have to be thoughtful about it. And I think with a little bit of focus, you can make it easier to do work. Yesterday, I had to get something done. It was going to take an hour. I was sitting at the computer and I had not been thoughtful about what I had shut off. And I literally was like, I can't tell you in that hour how many times I said, do one thing at a time. Go back and finish the one thing you have to do today. This has to be done right now. Stop getting distracted because it's hard when you get a message from someone and then my
you're
email
like, I'll just respond to that right quick.
I know.
And then right quick is you're down a rabbit hole and you're reading your other email and then you're responding to that and then you can't even remember what it was that you're trying to get done. It happens. It happens.
It does. It happens to all of us. So investing some time to find the right tools, to clean up your life. We talked about Trello, being good for some things, Asana being better for others, but you have to experiment with some of the stuff. You can do that before even law school starts, and work on distraction because there are always ways to limit use and establish good habits, delete some social media off of your phone, lots of different things you can do. We all struggle with this. It's an ongoing moving target because the reality is these devices are built to be addictive. So we have to manage the addiction. It's not the device's fault. We are the humans. We get to control the devices. It's pretty
much the device maker's fault, but that's a separate podcast. All right. With that, unfortunately, we are out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, maybe you were listening on your device, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We would really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee or Allison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.